Well,
Without further ado,
without
all the dudes.
all the dudes, every dudes, 11 dudes on each side of the field, because it's time to wrap things up, pack it in, go play golf in Maui, because it's the end of the regular season here in the National Football League, and Super Jam Session. Well, at least the Super and the Session are here, as we are going to bring you a revision of the regular season of the 2025 into 2026 NFL. And boy, what a year it was. If there's no other words to describe it, Skyler, I think the one word that comes to my mind is unexpected.
Unexpected is a good word. Unpredictable is another one. This truly did feel like a changing of the guard year, in that there are some new faces who are going to take over from the old faces of the NFL. And we'll just have to see what they do.
And it just so happens that those new faces happen to be old faces with a new coat of paint on them. And some of them are terrifying to conceptualize that they might be back. But we're going to get there in a while. So what we're going to do is I have got the list of all of the records that you predicted, all the records that I predicted, and then the record that the team actually got. So I'm going to read off the team, the records that we had, and then just the impressions that we had of each team, what we thought at first, and what they turned into.
Well, before we get to the records, can we just say something about this season in general?
Please do.
This year, I've had the most apathy I've ever had in my lifetime of watching football. And it is because of the constant advertisements, the streaming services, the players being bitchy, all the injuries. This has been a difficult season to really get into, and I never really got into it and hooked the way I have been in the past.
Skyler, I feel like we've had this same conversation by a different sport.
Yes, we have.
This sounds really familiar to what a lot of 2025 sounded like on another channel that we have, link in the description.
Right, but do you feel the same way, Sean?
Well, it's interesting because this was the most fun I had following the league, yet this is probably the least actual football I watched. I wasn't bothered to actually, pay attention, watch any of the games. I just had stuff to do on my Sundays. And I love my team, even though they drove me mad this year, but that's a different story. We will get to that. But in overall, it's the league was fine. It was a fun year. Teams that weren't normally on top got to be on top. It just felt like everything was wide open in a way that it wasn't before. And that was fun to follow. But I also found myself not really caring about watching any of the games with any sort of fervor. And I did for the sake of the shorts that we did, the quicker thoughts I would watch. But a lot of times, like wrestling, I could watch the highlight video on the day after and not miss a damn thing.
Yes, but also it's just, again, for me particularly, don't make it difficult for me to have to watch the football games. All the international games being as early as possible in the morning on the streaming service channels that I don't want to pay for.
And the one that didn't have ads now does have ads.
Red Zone dying for advertisements.
Yeah.
NFL, this is your wake-up call. Stop being money-grubbing Mr. Krabs. I like money. We hate it in professional wrestling, and I hate it in football.
And the problem is, in both areas, they're getting record houses. They're drawing record stadiums still. They're getting record people tuning in still. And that's one of the things. They just changed the Nielsen system, which has been hurting wrestling pretty significantly. It has been very much helping the NFL. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And I think a part of that whole restructuring was done to further justify the NFL's expansion and money grabbingness, because they're saying, well, look at all this extra ratings that we're getting. Look at all these money. And the average Joe is not going to be like you and me, Skyler, who's watching it from a wrestling perspective. They're just going to look at it and go, well, they have record viewership, so that must mean that their business model is working. But to the regular viewer, it's very frustrating phenomenon.
Right, but again, that's all. Like, if you want us to rant about football, let us know, and we'll rant about football for another 2 hours. But that's not what we're here to do.
That's right. We're here to rant about teams that we like, don't care about, or dislike. And we've got 32 to go through. And just for fun, I'm going to go through it in the same order that we did the predictions. So we're going to start with the NFC. We're going to work our way down, and then we're going to go through the AFC. And we start with the Eagles, who are the 3 seed in the playoffs at the time of recording in the NFC. Both of us predicted that they would end up 14-3. Their actual record was 11-6. And the only statement I've got to make about the Eagles this year is that obviously talent-wise, they're quite good as they've been. But why is this team so fucking dramatic? It's always internal bullshit with this team, to where even with an 11-6 record, it just doesn't feel good. Why is this, Skyler? I don't get it.
Well, that's the thing. When I said the players were being bitchy, I meant it.
Yeah, and it's always Philadelphia, and they're always bitchy about each other, and then they'll go and win 6 straight. And Nick Sirianni just stirs the pot. He does not help that at all. But
Nick Sirianni is the most fraudulent head coach that won a Super Bowl in a while.
Well, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl with the same franchise, so, you know, the Eagles are kind of known for this.
That much drama when Doug Peterson won it. Like, the guys were able to get along with each other. I've never seen a football team that hate each other so much that wins so many games.
It's Mean Girls, the football team, and it's working. And well, okay, let me rephrase that. It's not that it's working; it's that the rest of the NFC East is so abysmally awful that even they're winning despite themselves. And they rested all their starters, and they lost their last game against Washington, which did drop them a seed. I don't know if that really matters all that much, but it'll be interesting to see. But a weird season for the defending champions, and I don't know what it's going to translate to come the playoff time.
Right, and again, if I'm being honest, this is a team that has ruined the NFL with their play style because everything that they do is around the tush push.
And look how many tush pushes there are now everywhere. They're popping up everywhere. But at least to the problem is with the Eagles is that their offense, they lost Kellen Moore, who they really needed as an offensive coordinator, because the offensive coordinator they had this year just could not put together, even though they won 11 games, it was not the same for this offense at all. Jalen Hurts was struggling. Saquon had an abysmal year because they hardly ever let him run with it. It was just rough on the offensive side of the ball for Philadelphia.
Yep. And the only thing that saved them is the rest of this division.
Yeah, because then we move on to Washington, and boy, we nailed this one. My prediction was 11-6, thinking that they would step down a little. Your prediction was 13-4. And you know what's funny? I said when we talked about Washington, I said barring a major injury, this team was going to be big. And wouldn't you know what happened to this Washington team, Sky? Injuries killed this season for the Commanders, I think.
Well, that's the thing, though, is that injuries killed any team in the NFL that had expectations.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of injuries this year.
Yeah.
NFL, this is also your hint to get rid of AstroTurf.
Yeah, please, for the love of God. They won't, but please.
MetLife Stadium is a disaster and a hazard to anybody who plays on it.
Yeah, and that's been proven for many, many years. I mean, that was the case when the Rams in St. Louis, or like in 2001, they nearly, it was amazing that they got as far as they did because people were getting hurt on that turf right and left. Like all the time that turf was injuring people, and it's not doing any better, but yeah. But then this Washington team ended up 5-12 was their actual, but you can't say that, and God bless Marcus Mariota, he tried, but Jaden Daniels going down early did not help the chances of the Commanders at all.
Well, even before he got hurt, he didn't have a good year because he was having the sophomore slump, as all sophomores do. And he was just, people figured out his game and they were able to game plan around him. It also doesn't help that the Commanders was actually one of the oldest teams in the NFL. And you could see it. They just don't have the speed anymore.
Well, and it's amazing how much that can change from one year to the next. But, we saw it where, a number of players in Washington were trying to leave in the offseason. And I wasn't understanding it. I'm like, what's the problem here? And I don't know whether it was with, because there is some level of reflection on Dan Quinn here, because we saw something similar happen in Atlanta the year after they, 28-3'd. And which is why Dan Quinn ended up being fired from Atlanta and then going to Dallas and doing pretty good there, which got him the head coaching job here in Washington. But it's this kind of drop off. It's usually not just the result of one thing. It's a summation of all of the parts. It's partly coaching. It's partly the defense that Dan Quinn is supposed to be the one in charge of. And it's partly that, when you lose your figurehead, that makes it really hard. And, God bless Marcus Mariota for keeping them in games. To the credit of the Commanders, they were in most of the games they played. They just ended up not being able to close.
They just couldn't do it.
Yeah. And speaking of try as they might, they just couldn't do it. The Dallas Cowboys, who actually surpassed expectations from both you and I, Skyler, who did a 5-12 record both for Dallas, and they ended up 7-9-1 in Brian Schottenheimer's first year. Dak played every game. It didn't really seem to matter whether he was hurt or not, because they were 7-10 last year, and a tie with the Packers is the only thing that changes that this year.
Well, here's the thing, though. At the end of the day, the only reason why the Cowboys have such a good record.
Well, good, in quotes.
Well, it's the division they played.
Yeah.
But also, they got games against the Jets and the Panthers that they lost, but, that's beside the point.
But that's the Cowboys. They'll always lose the games that they should, and then put a whooping on teams that they shouldn't be competitive with. That's pretty known for Dallas.
Also, they lost to the Cardinals. If they beat the Cardinals and the Panthers, they are in the playoffs.
But see, that's what Dallas does. They'll lose to the teams that they should beat by 30. And then they'll go and tie the Packers at 40. It's like, I don't get it. But this is what they do. They play down or up to the team they're facing, which is why they can never break this glass ceiling. And I know they just paid Dak a shit ton of money, but you and I have talked about it for several years, Sky. I don't think Dak is it, and he's not getting younger. But
again, Dak Prescott is a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. Top 12. He's a good quarterback.
He's a good quarterback. He's not a bad quarterback. He's a good quarterback. Is he a great quarterback?
His numbers would say so.
His numbers would say so, but his ring collection would say otherwise. But, and it's not always about rings. I understand that. I think that I said it before he got renewed. I think Dak needs a change of pace. He needs a fresh start somewhere. This would have been, to me, this would be a great opportunity to see like a ridiculous trade for like Burrow for Dak. Like, let's just go full bore into like the lunacy here, because both teams ended up dead in the water. And we're going to talk about the Bengals shortly, but this is the time where I think that the change of scenery would be really nice for him. Hell, even Miami, but somewhere that Dak, I think, could find a way to break the glass ceiling that he just can't there. And it's,
yeah, and again, I don't know if Jerry Jones, the general manager, really works, considering how things with the Micah Parsons trade and everything else with that stuff.
Well, in all fairness to Jerry, Micah Parsons did tear his ACL in the last game. Not that it matters, but the Packers weren't. Yes, Micah Parsons helped the Packers a lot, but was he the be-all, end-all of that Packers team? Not especially. And B, he picked up Quinnen Williams, which actually helped their defense significantly in the second half of the season. And I think will be a good Cowboy from years to come.
The New York Jets were bad.
Well, but the Jets are always bad. But it takes some foresight for Jerry. At least Jerry understands to take advantage of the one owner that's worse than him. You know, if being 31st is still better than being 32nd. So
listen, Sean. Just because Colonial Impact Wrestling can take advantage of totally awesome wrestling doesn't mean that you can compare it to the Jerry Jones taking advantage of the Jets.
Yeah, but Jerry Jones is a referee for CIW, so that actually tracks more than you think it does. So, but let's move on. Hold
on. Before we do it, let's do the Stephen A. Smith thing.
How about them
Cowboys?
Who actually, I must admit, if I'm going to say something positive about the Cowboys, I do like Brian Schottenheimer. I didn't think I was going to like him as a coach. I don't know whether it's going to translate to full-blown success with him as a coach, but I like him. And I got to give him credit for that. You know, he took a team that could have been the 5-12 we gave it to him and ended up being close to mid. So going from bad to mid when the expectations were kind of on the floor, I give you some credit for that. But then, speaking of the floor, let's plunge through to the basement. Why did I try? Why do I try with this team? I don't understand. I do understand because I have bias, but it hurts me every time. We have now reached the first one that either of us have gotten correct. As Skyler, you correctly and accurately predicted that the Giants would be 4-13 in search of a new head coach, and both of those predictions came to pass. I was hoping that Brian Daboll was not ass, but Brian Daboll unfortunately was in fact ass, and so therefore my 8-9 prediction was the 4-13 that I was dreading it would be, but I knew secretly in my heart it was inevitable that it was going to be. And it's not going to get better.
The pain that I have with this team?
Yes, please.
In one of my fantasy drafts, I think in like either the 12th or 13th round, I picked up a little running back by the name of Cam Scadaboo.
Oh, and he was such a highlight of this year for the Giants until he, got hurt.
Who single-handedly helped win me 3 of my fantasy games when he was healthy.
I bet.
As my running back 1.
Yeah, he was crushing it. He was one of the big highlights of the Giants season for as many as there were.
And then he tore his ACL.
Wouldn't be the only one.
Again, this is proof that MetLife Stadium is the worst stadium in football. Get rid of the turf. Heck, burn the whole stadium down, why don't you?
Well, but it's not even just them.
Burn the down, salt the earth so nothing can grow back, and build a new one.
Malik Neighbors got hurt. His season was ended early, because of an injury. And unfortunately, they just have no offensive line because the general manager that they're keeping, by the way, to hire this next coach, didn't bother to build an offensive line, decided to let Saquon ride in order to re-sign Daniel Jones without that offensive line in place, built something of a defense but didn't have anybody functional to run it, and then was held on, and then stumbled upon Jackson Dart, who was not even the guy they wanted because they tried to trade up for Cam Ward, and also stumbled upon Cam Scadaboo when most of the rest of his picks have been ass. So the thing that bothers me about this team, Sky, is that while I do think that Jackson Dart's got potential, I do think Cam Scadaboo's got potential, I think Malik Neighbors has got potential, but I'll tell you what, they're going to realize that potential somewhere other than on the New York Football Giants. That I almost guarantee, because I don't trust Joe Shane to pick a good coach. I don't trust him to pick somebody who has experience. I trust that he's going to do the same inept bullshit that he's been doing for the past 4 years that they've just allowed to take place. And look at the results of it. It's been terrible. It's been absolutely terrible. They made David Gettleman look like Jason Light. And it's just
John,
sad. It's just sad.
Can I say two words?
Red undies? Oh, sorry, wrong show.
Pete Carroll.
You know what? If they keep Russell Wilson, let's go.
You know they would.
I do know they would. But you know what? Pete Carroll. Here's the difficulty is, we don't know just how good this coaching market's going to actually be because we don't know whether Harbaugh's going anywhere. I kind of doubt Mike Tomlin's going to go anywhere now, that they made the playoffs. I don't know whether John Gruden is actually a serious contender, or Brian Flores, or a whole bunch of other names that get floating around during this coaching cycle that takes place here in this, as the Jets look for Rex Ryan, even though they're keeping Aaron Glenn. We'll get to that. But the Giants need somebody of experience. And the first name that comes to my mind, because it couldn't get possibly any worse than this, is Mike McCarthy. Because let's say what you want about the Cowboys, but even when the Cowboys were getting kicked out of the first round of the playoffs, they were at least winning 12 games in the regular season. The Giants would kill for a 12-game regular season, even if they lose in the first round. They could use anything right now. Anything right now. But you know what? But we'll see. But another lost season for the Giants. Mercifully, it comes to an end, but at least there's some upside going into next year.
But they don't even have the first overall pick.
I don't think they need it, because they don't need a quarterback. Go find the fifth pick. Hell, they might even trade down if it gets them multiple picks of quality offensive linemen. But I'm knowing Joe Shane, he's going to pick up another running back. But if he actually started caring about the line and he found some quality people to start building one, then that fifth pick might be mortgageable for something more valuable. I don't think they need the number one pick, and I also think they overvalue the number one pick overall in general.
But that's the thing, though. They won their last two games. They won their way out of number one overall.
I think.
Oh my God, New York Giants. If you were not who you were, I would mistake you for the Jets, because that is such a New York Jet thing to happen. You're set to get the first overall pick, and you win your last two games.
Well, may I counter with one? Nothing was going to stop the Raiders from tanking the way they tanked. If you watch that game with the Giants and the Raiders, the Raiders literally threw that game away. The Giants couldn't have given that game away if they tried.
They should have.
And secondly, I think it's more important for Jackson Dart to try and win games, because they know they've got their quarterback. They know they've got it. And they know that Cam's going to come back and be electric, hopefully. And Malik's coming back and he's going to be valuable. So they've got pieces. So I don't know if they necessarily need the urgency of a number one draft pick the way that the Raiders do or the Jets do. And so I get what you're saying, Sky, but I think with the way that the Raiders were tanking, I don't think the Giants need it. And I don't think with Joe Shane involved that it would matter what pick they get. They could get the number one pick and they'd still fuck it up.
Which they will.
Which they will and probably will still. But speaking of things fucking up, we move on to the Minnesota Vikings, who, if we had talked about 6 weeks ago, we would have been way, way off. But somehow they won 5 straight to finish this year. As I predicted 10-7, you predicted 11-6, and they ended up 9-8 with no playoffs. But that's because they dug themselves into a giant hole prior to the last 5 games of the season where it didn't even matter.
I guess this was a weird year for the Vikings, but I guess it just kind of proves that, like, Sam Darnold is a good quarterback, and they probably should have kept him.
They probably should have kept him. But you know what's interesting, though, is I will have to say, I give credit to the patience of Kevin O'Connell to work with J.J. McCarthy as he gets out all of that rookie shit he couldn't last year because he had his ACL injury. Because J.J. McCarthy this year was buns. Big buns. Big mama's house buns. And it's not his fault. It's his first year in the league, pretty much. And so I think that there's more to be done with JJ, but this was definitely a growing pains year for Minnesota. And it's a shame for somebody like Adam Thielen, who eventually was just like, get me the fuck out of here. And which is why he's now on the playoff approaching Pittsburgh Steelers. But it's just, this was a tough year for the Vikings, especially because this is not the first time that they've had a tremendous season with a good quarterback that they mortgaged away for a lesser quarterback, and then they paid for years for it, a la Case Keenum and Kirk Cousins.
Right. Although, here's the thing I do want to point out about their last 5 wins. It was Cowboys, Giants, Lions, Packers, Commanders. Like,
The Packers there was at least impressive. And the Lions were
Packers were the
trying.
last game of the season when they already had the spot and were resting players.
Well, I suppose that's fair.
The Vikings won 3 games against the has-beens of the NFC East and the Lions, who we'll get to in a second.
But in all fairness, they didn't have to win those games.
They just won their way out of a good draft pick. That's all they did.
Well, but again, I think it's good for the quarterback development, which is shown to matter. It's shown to, I mean, look at the way that Trevor Lawrence looks now with some decent quarterback development. Bryce Young is getting better, albeit the rest of the team has its inconsistencies, as does Bryce. But like, good quarterback development goes a long way. And so I don't blame them for winning. I mean, I feel pretty good as a Vikings fan to go, we still ended up with a winning season after trading away Sam Darnold, who, yeah, is the top seed in the NFC. But you at least might have a more long-term foundation at play here. So I don't know.
The problem is that you have good JJ McCarthy and bad JJ McCarthy. So next year will be the real make or break, depending on what they do with this roster. But man, it is uneasy considering that this was, in my opinion, one of the toughest divisions of football. Every team in this division has a winning record.
Yeah. And it goes to show that the fact that Minnesota, even if they beat up on some bad teams to close out the year, which is why they dug themselves into the hole that they did, but even all that notwithstanding, the fact they still ended up with a winning record goes to show the tenacity of the team and that they see that there's a vision going. You know, they're heading in the right direction. Then we get to the Packers, and I'm not so sure that that's the case in Green Bay. I predicted 12-5, you predicted 14-3, and their final record was 9-7-1, and they made the playoffs because of a half a game. And boy, this was a strange year for Green Bay.
It is, and they're going to get bounced real easy.
Yeah, and now here's the penultimate question here, Sky. Is Jordan Love the guy?
He kind of has to be by default because you put all this time and effort into him.
Well, you did, but then everyone sees Malik Willis have a good game or two, and then everyone goes, oh, well, it's
Malik
like
Willis is not the answer.
No, but he's going to be a great fall guy for the New York Jets next year. You watch. They're gonna pay him like $20 million for a year to come and suck. It's gonna be brutal.
Look, the Packers just need to build a better roster. They made the trade for Michael Parsons. He was damaged goods for all year. Hopefully he'll. Here's the thing though: he won't be healthy to start next year.
No, and the thing is that he did have some good moments. But I think that there was some validity to Jerry Jones saying that's not the same Micah Parsons that I would have paid an exorbitant amount of money for. You know, we started the year with him having back issues, you know, where he was taking cortisol shots to go out and go and play the first couple of games, you know, and it's not that the Packers don't have good weapons. They do. I mean, they're in the playoffs. They have a playoff spot playing a team that nobody expected they were going to be able to play in the playoffs. But I'm worried that this team is heading on a trajectory where it's going to be either the quarterback goes, the coach goes, or both go in the next couple of years if they can't figure out a more advancing in the playoff formula.
Well, if it's going to be one or the other, it's going to be the coach because Jordan Love, again, as I said, is the guy who just got the opportunity to be a starter last year.
Yeah.
And you're not going to move off of him after only 2 years. You have to give him a little bit more time.
Well, and he's, the difficulty is that a lot of people will see his first 3 years of sitting behind Aaron Rodgers and go, well, he's been in the league for 5, so why isn't he better? The fact that he's even as good as he's been should tell you how much those 3 years mattered for him. But, you know, it's going to be interesting to see where this team leads. And hell, could the Packers beat the Bears? Absolutely. Would I be surprised if the Packers win this playoff game? Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest would I be surprised if the Packers won this last game. Well, let's move on to the other team they're going to play. The winner of this division, and maybe the most surprising, come from the basement of any of the teams involved. Because I didn't think it was going to happen this quickly, and neither did you. The Chicago Bears, I gave them 6-11. You gave them 7-10, and they closed out 11-6. But I won't lie to you, Sky, it was not a strong 11-6 when they finished things up.
No, but they still finished 11-6. And the thing is that I did not expect Caleb Williams to become the Caleb Williams that he is.
Quarterback development, man. Letting them work through that shit. I mean, think about how much struggle that he went through last year and the year before, just kind of working out all those kinks until he got a coach of actual quality who could actually guide him into better, how to advance himself. And Caleb Williams, and to be fair to the rest of the group in Chicago, they put a lot of weapons around Caleb Williams before Ben Johnson came along, to where it was more like they had a team that needed a coach rather than the other way around.
But here's the thing, though, is that, like, is this real or is this a fantasy?
Caught in a landslide to escape from reality.
Thank you, Sean.
Open your eyes, Skyler. Look up to the skies and see that the Packers might just beat the Bears, because I'm
just a poor boy.
I need some sympathy is exactly what the Bears fans will be saying. Bears fans always want people to feel sorry for them.
You've been bad for a long time. You deserve to have good stuff, Chicago.
No, in all fairness, I agree.
Oh my God, the Bears have been terrible the past few decades.
Well, the Bears have been terrible, and then lately the Blackhawks have been awful, which I'm not necessarily upset about, because I'm still kind of sore about that Game 6 from 2013 when it was Bruins Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup. I felt like that should have been our cup.
They have 3 Stanley Cups in the past 16 years. The Blackhawks can go fuck themselves.
I know, but
and also let's be clear, the sexual assault allegations, fuck them.
I thought that was kind of the idea of what sexual assault allegations for. And also, I know nothing about those, not to Colonel Clink that, but I genuinely am not aware of
long story short, a video coach of theirs molested an underage player.
That's not good. That's very bad.
So let's get out of Chicago and Epstein files for a second, and go back to the other side of the pond and go to the Bears.
Yeah, well, yes. We're still in Chicago, but
we're going to the other side of Chicago. The point is that the Bear fans have suffered for a long time. They should enjoy this, and hell, a game against the Packers in the playoffs. What more could you ask for?
A win against the Packers ever would probably help.
Exactly, on home field too.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, I am happy for Chicago, and savor the moment, Bears fans, because you know as well as I do, this doesn't happen very often for Chicago. This does not happen very often at all. The only thing that could
make that game better is if it had snow.
Well, it just might. I mean, it's one of the most classic rivalries in all of football. It's one of the oldest rivalries in all of football. It's going to be nice, and it's going to be, I'm glad to see it. I'm happy to see it. Genuinely happy to see that the Bears found a way to put it together in a way I did not expect, and I appreciate that. But then you want to talk about only getting one shot. You only have one shot, and I think that the Lions might have just missed it. Because the Lion clearly does not concern itself with sustained victories. My prediction was 12-5, yours was 14-3, and they end up 9-8 in last in this division. No playoffs.
Ugh.
Yeah. Ugh, indeed. And boy, I would love for Jared Goff not to be a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Because when he plays like a Jekyll, and he's throwing the ball and he's scrambling and he's doing great stuff. And then there's games where he just downright hides and then throws 4 picks. And it's brutal.
I think we have reached the point with the Lions where in their contention window, They have just had their bad season. They got smacked around. Let's see what happens.
Well, yeah, there's very possible that they bounce back, but boy, they really missed both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. On offense and defense suffered, and the fact that really a lot of what cost them this year was the cavalier attitude of Dan Campbell once he took over the play calling a little bit, and that did hurt them. You know, and I don't know what ultimately is going to happen with the Lions, but I think they know that they need to figure out more with the schemes because they've got the talent, but they won't for long if they can't keep the wins coming. And speaking of not
the thing though is that like they have to redo that roster. They need to really change it up and see what they can do. But also, is Dan Campbell in the hot seat next year?
It depends on what the record is. I think if they end up with a 9-8 season, if they end up with a season that they had this year, I would say no. But if they are staring down the barrel
but if they go instead of 9-8, they go 6-11.
Yeah, if they go 6, I would say even 7-10 would put him in kind of at least warm territory. You know, which is a shame because I really think that it's more on Goff than it is on Dan, but it's you know, I do think that ultimately if they can't put it together next year, they're going to have to break up the core in one way or the other, whether it's Goff goes or Dan Campbell goes or both go. You know, I'm not sure. You know, but what they can't do is they can't lose people who will be the generational talents, right? They can't lose Jahmyr Gibbs. They can't lose Aiden Hutchinson. You know, they can't lose Amon-Ra St. Brown. You know, there's some of those guys that you need to hold on to who are going to be generational talent for the Detroit Lions. It's just, there's got to be something else put together, and I think a lot of it is quality coordinators. So we'll see whether there are any personnel changes that take place as far as what Dan is looking for, so that hopefully he doesn't feel like he needs to take more control of things that he will just end up spreading himself thin doing.
You know, I didn't used to believe in the whole, coordinators are so important. Like, yeah, you can just replace them with anybody. But now, after this season, especially watching the Lions, I'm like, no, coordinators do matter.
Yeah, and especially when you have one who's doing both coordinating and head coaching, and it turns out that he can't do either while doing both. He could do one, sure. He could do the other, kind of, but together, it's not working. And that brings us to the NFC South, also known as trash. And I just want one year, I want 2 teams from the South in the playoffs, preferably with winning records. Because this...
Sean, why would you want 2 teams from your division to be in the playoffs?
Because I don't want this division to suck ass. I would like to feel like whoever wins this, whether it's Tampa, whether it's Carolina, whether it's New Orleans, or whether it's Atlanta, has a fighting shot of doing a damn thing. And they never do. I mean, there was a time when Tom Brady was teabagging the entire NFC South before he joined it. The Panthers show up, Tom wrecks them. The Falcons show up, Tom wrecks them. The Saints show up. I don't think they ever played in the Super Bowl, but when Tom was on the Bucs, Tom wrecked them. But they don't ever do it. The South cannot ever seem to put functioning football teams in concurrence with each other at the same time to where all of these teams were bad. The only one that actually felt like it was on the upswing was the Panthers for the midseason and the Saints in the last 3 games of the last part of the season. And even though the Falcons won 4 straight to end their year, they are the first ones to fire their coach.
And their general manager.
It's a fucking disaster in the South. It is just, all 4 of these teams should be ashamed of themselves for the garbage they perpetrate year in and year out, to where even a 10-7 record last year felt like they were leagues behind everybody else, to the point where this was actually more realistic to the talent level involved on all 4 of these teams. I'm disgusted with all of y'all. All of y'all. And I'm not even going to say any more about Tampa Bay. They're probably going to keep Todd, but that ship hit the iceberg a while ago, and it's going to keep sinking. It will not get better next year. Baker's going to get blamed. It's not even his fault, but he's trying so damn hard because everyone else sucks that now he's starting to suck because the suck's starting to rub off on him. As we both chose 10-7, they ended up 8-9 and second in the division in a three-way tie with 8-9 and no playoffs. None of these teams deserve it.
Remember the first 5 weeks of the season when there was talk about Baker Mayfield winning the MVP award?
He looked great. But then Tampa did what Tampa's done for 48 out of the past 50 years of their existence. Made you regret ever deciding to be a fan of the team. Because they came back from that bye.
It can't be 48 of 50. Weren't they good during some of the Warren Sapp years when Jeff Garcia was the quarterback?
I kid. Because honestly, the late 90s were fun into the early 2000s. And then like after the Super Bowl win, a couple of those years were fun too. Then it was 13 years of hell. And for the past 5 years, I've had a great time. From Tom winning us the Super Bowl to making the playoffs repeatedly for 4 straight years after that, even though Todd made it as unenjoyable as humanly possible, to the Baker Mayfield comeback story, to everything involved. I've had a lot of fun in the past 5 years. I'm very grateful. All things considered, I'm very grateful. I don't ask for much. I got what I wanted out of being a Bucs fan. So if they get pushed back down the card, God bless them. That's the way it's supposed to be. I'm not even mad about that. I just wish that this division felt like it had a snowball's chance in hell of doing anything. Ever. If the Jets were a division, they'd be the NFC South. And
well, here's the thing, though. We've already done our piece about Tampa, but let's look at the other division.
Well, yeah, let's move on to the Saints, who did better than we both thought. Because I thought 3-14, you thought 4-13, and they ended up 6-11. And it looks like they may have found a quarterback, and Kellen Moore's actually not doing as bad as a head coach as I surmised. He just has no talent on that roster yet.
Again, it's the question, though, of have they found the quarterback of the future, or is this the quarterback of the moment?
Well, it depends on what their offseason brings to them, because they're in the top 10, I think, of the draft order.
Because we're chucking it up, baby.
Yeah, so it's not like they're in a bad spot, and they could, if the Giants are looking for something, if the Saints have anything to trade off, who knows? Who knows what the Saints might do?
The Saints do own the number 8 pick, so they could grab something in the top 10.
Yeah, and I do think that the Saints are on the upswing, and I'm proud of New Orleans because it's been a rough couple of years for that team. It's been a real rough couple of years for that team.
Ever since Drew Brees.
Yeah, they've been really struggling to find an identity, and I think they're starting. So I think they're going to be better. They're going to be better next year, I think. I'm not so sure about
the four teams. The Saints are the one that seems like it has the brightest future, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, I would also say, well, it depends on how the Panthers play against the Rams. Yeah, but
well, okay, we'll get to them, but no, I don't believe in the Panthers whatsoever.
Well, the problem is that they are like flip a coin. Some days they're great, and some days they are just a big ball of nothing. But speaking of a big ball of nothing, the Atlanta Falcons, who we have now moved to my accurate prediction of the NFC, because I predicted 8-9, you predicted 9-8, and they did end up 8-9. And I would have given them less, but I thought that Michael Penix Jr., before he got hurt, was going to give them more wins than they did, but I just didn't trust Raheem Morris as a head coach. Clearly, neither did Atlanta, and clearly they all saw that he was a big part of the problem, in the same way he was for Tampa Bay 10 years ago. He's a good coordinator, not a head coach. It is what it is.
But also, here's the thing, though. This is the heart of SEC country. This is where the Georgia Bulldogs call home and is one of the biggest things in football. And the Falcons, who have a proud history, can't do more than this pathetic crap.
People don't talk about how not great Arthur Blank is as an owner.
The problem is that he's in a league with a bunch of other really bad owners in it.
I know. David Tepper. who we're going to talk about in a
Like,
second.
between the Mora family, who, by the way, I do hear that John Mora is almost dying. So, I mean, it is what it is. But let's be honest, the Giants have been shit.
Oh, you
The
mean John
Jets
Mara?
and Woody
Yes.
Johnson, Jerry Jones, need we say more? Whoever owns the Cleveland Browns, it's Haslam.
I don't remember the name.
I believe it is Haslam. The point is that, like, Blank is lucky that he is in a league where there is 5 to 6 other really bad owners in it.
Yeah. Being 26th worst owner is better than being 32nd. I can't believe this is a recurring thing. But it's
that's
the truth.
The thing with all bad NFL teams is that usually it starts from the top down, and Blank has made a bunch of mediocrity in a place that is ripe for football. You have big, strong, powerful players being grown up in that area, and you can't build on the game there.
And they've got some good talent.
As hell.
And they've got some great talent on that team. I mean, the jury's still out on Penix, but God, Bijan Robinson is a stud. I said
he may be the best running back in the NFL.
That's
right
what
now.
I said that like in week 6, and that's not to take anything away from the Derrick Henrys and the, all of the great running that we saw. The what's his name, Ramondre Stevenson from the Patriots. We got a lot of great running backs this year. It's a good year for running backs. Bijan Robinson was like the how does Ben Schwarmer brand call it? The Bugatti in the trailer park. He's a great player on a mid team, but they've got players. Drake London's good. They've got some players on defense. It's just it needs coaching. It needs a quality coach, and so I think that there's something to be done with Atlanta, and honestly, I think they're going to be on the upswing next year too. I think that all 3 of the teams that aren't named Tampa Bay are going to have better years than they did last year. And that brings us
Atlanta really depends on who is the general manager and who's the head coach.
True. But sometimes a fresh start is better than continuing with what you got, knowing that you know what you got. And that's the case with Raheem Morris, regrettably. And now let's talk about the Panthers, who I will say I am proud that I at least predicted that they would be in the playoffs. If I'm going to glean anything to take away, I've said it to you before, Skyler, if I can't be good, I might as well be right. At least I got, but a faint praise, being the nicest guy in prison in this, as Jim Cornette would say. Panthers, I predicted 10-7. You predicted 3-14, and they ended up with 8-9. And boy, it wasn't easy, but they are literally crawling, beaten up, bruised and bloody, limping into the playoffs against a very motivated Rams team. But I will say, you got to give Dave Canales credit. He went to a team with a terrible owner and said, I can craft Bryce Young, who everyone is already saying is a bust, and make him somewhat passable. And you know what? He has been somewhat passable. Rico Dotto's been a huge part of that.
Or is this the one good season that Tua had?
Well, I wouldn't really classify this as a good season, but I would say that
that's the thing, though, is this a good Bryce Young season, or is this the one good year that Tua had?
Well, I guess it's going to depend on what next year looks like, because the thing that gave me the confidence about the Panthers in the first place was that their last 3 or 4 games of last season, Bryce Young was starting to look real good, much better than he was playing before. He was starting to really get rhythm going, and I think he just didn't have a lot of talent depth on that roster, and they still don't. But they added a lot of weapons this year that ended up being breakout players, and Dave Canales' coaching is helping Bryce learn, and I think that that's going to matter, especially with a division that they know that they can just be mid and still win, because no team in the NFC South is ever going to be good, so you can kind of suck and still get there. So
I still think the NFL needs to make a rule that if a division winner has a losing record, we just skip them and we pick another team.
I think it's getting really frustrating that the NFC South has incurred this discussion 3 times in the past 20 years. That's right. The thing that gets me so annoyed about this.
Teams that does it, because the East did it for a little bit, the West did it for a little bit. Now it's in the South area.
But here's the wild part about that, though. A lot of the times, for some reason, the team that with the losing record that goes in, except for that Tampa team that was doomed to fail against the Cowboys with Tom Brady going through his divorce. But there was a Panthers team, the last time this happened, I think in 2013, that Panthers team was 7-8-1 and beat I think it was the 11-5 Detroit Lions in the first round. And so they ended up making it, so sometimes wild shit happens. You get that weird 8-8 New York Giants team that ends up winning the Super Bowl against the undefeated Pats. So there's always that weird ass story that sometimes blossoms out of it. So, this year makes a case, I think, for at least some discussion about maybe changing the seeding in that respect to where they don't get a home game. They make the playoffs, but they can't get a home game out of that. That's the thing that I think is the more. But again, I think they've got far bigger problems in the league than that. Let's get the officiating squared away first, and then let's move on to that. But in any case,
and injuries,
yeah, and injuries and concussions and all sorts, and all sorts of things. There's a long list.
The things that Gary Bettman doesn't want to talk about.
Exactly.
Sorry, Gary Bettman, Roger Goodell, all the commissioners suck.
Yeah, I cannot disagree with that. But you know what I thought would suck that ended up not sucking was the San Francisco 49ers. Now,
hold on, Sean. Since you got to go on a rant with the NFC South for a little bit, let me go on my rant with the division that I am part of.
Yes, please do.
Because the thing is that, do you know how frustrating it is being in a division where almost every team is good? I don't care that my team had a winning record because we're stuck in a division of killers. And we're going to be stuck in this division of killers because that's just the cycle and the way that things are. And the problem now is that we have to win so many games just to try and get a number one seed when we could just luck our way into the NFC South with 8 wins and get to the home game that we always wanted. Right, Sean?
I would gladly trade the spot. I would rather just know that we suck. I would gladly give you the NFC South trophy at being 12-5 than have you sit in at a 6 seed having a better record than the team that you're playing in the opposing team's hometown. I'm with you on that.
And that's the thing. That's the point, though, is that's exactly what's going on right now. Is that you guys basically have the Rams coming to town. But again, another discussion for another time. The point is that if you asked most 49ers fans, who I talk to a lot of, you would think the sky was falling every single day that the games were happening.
Well, yeah. Well, the problem is, too, is that the big picture here, when you lost Fred Warner, when you had all of those injuries week 6 and 7, and it looked dismal. It looked like there was no hope for this 49ers team then. And the fact that they still found a way, losing Brock Purdy and somehow remaining afloat with Matt Jones and playing pretty decent ball. Christian McCaffrey having a year where he doesn't spend most of it on the sideline.
Well, the joke that we kept making is that every single week a 49 injury happened, it was because of the fact that Christian McCaffrey needed a blood sacrifice to the blood gods to stay healthy.
I was going to say, did he make the same Joe Namath deal with the devil that all the people around him go down just so he could have one full 17-game season?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Christian McCaffrey did, is that every injury was a sacrifice for him.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Well, but hey.
So that's the thing. That's the thing, though, is that when you look at the 49ers in this season, it has been the most painful winning season we've had in a while, where we feel like we're going to do absolutely nothing in the playoffs. If you ask a 49ers fan, they want to fire Shanahan, they want to fire Lynch, they want to go up to the head of the team and then say, screw you, sell the team. That's how 49ers fans feel as a 12-5 team going against the 11-6 Philadelphia Eagles.
Now, see, it's fascinating to me that you say that, Sky, because part of the reason that I chose 6-11 back at the beginning of the season was that it was of my opinion that Kyle Shanahan was losing his grip. You know, a 12-5 record clearly says the contrary to that. And it goes to show, once Mac Jones is the fall guy for the New York Jets next year, because when Mac Jones goes and gets a starting job and is nowhere near as good, Kyle Shanahan has maybe one of the best systems in the league. The problem is it has a ceiling to the point where you win 12 games and end up in third. You know, it's like, it's absurd.
Well, okay. To be fair, we end up in third on a technicality. So whatever it is whatever it is.
Right, but it's like, it's fascinating. It's a weird dichotomy to the point where I would have much rather given you the 4 seed, Sky. I wish you could have had it. I really do wish you could have had it. But then
we'd have to play the Rams. At least with the Eagles, there's some vulnerability there and we have a shot. But again, we'll get to individual matchups later.
Yeah, well then we get to the Cardinals, who fired Jonathan Gannon today. He was one of the Black Monday targets. We both predicted 7-10, and that was not the way that it went down.
I mean, here's the thing, is that as much as I was decrying the fact that we have to play against murderers in the NFC West, the only murder that's happening in Arizona right now is Kyler Murray and his Black Ops lobby.
He's done. He is done, beyond done. I'm not even sure he's going to get a backup job. That's how done I think Kyler Murray is with the NFL. And I also believe that he doesn't care enough to get another job somewhere, to tell you the truth. As it was a rough time. I don't even dislike Jonathan Gannon. Don't really think that this season was ultimately on him. There were a lot of games that the Cardinals played that they were in. They were in, and then they were Kyler Murray a lot of times would throw it away, or the defense would just stop playing for a crucial moment. You know, but this team was a 7-10 team that ended up 3-14 because they just could not get their shit together all year. And you want to talk about cursed franchises. This is one of them. Just give back the title, the 1928 title or whatever it is, that has caused you to be this bad for this long. It takes a very strong degree of skill to be this bad in a division that has this many good teams. There's
a reason why this is one of the toughest divisions in football.
Yeah.
And the thing is that the Cardinals were the bottom this year. They were everybody's, B. So they kept taking loss after loss.
Yeah. And it's amazing that they don't, what are they picking? 4th?
They are, yeah.
They're picking, yeah. So, they've got a spot, but they're going to need a quarterback too.
The only issue is that the top 2 quarterbacks are going to get taken before them, so they're not going to have to get a quarterback.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Mendoza and Moore, they're going to be so sought after, and I'm nervous about what teams they go to, how much their careers are going to be helped. But as this year has demonstrated, Sky, it's not a be-all, end-all to have your first team nearly destroy your career. You can bounce back and make something of yourself still.
Depends on what team you go to. Maybe you just have to go to Seattle.
That's right. Well, we got to move on to LA first before we get to Seattle. Because the Rams... Oh,
yes, another place that does rehabilitation of quarterbacks.
Yes, the Rams surpassed expectations as we both chose 11-6 and they ended up 12-5. As Matthew Stafford got more talk of MVP than I think I've ever heard him have. As this year... I never know how to really read LA. It's a team that always looks like they're good, but then you see them play in the playoffs and you're like, I don't know if they really are or not. And I feel like with Matthew Stafford's clock ticking here, it almost feels like this is a back against the wall type of season for the Rams, even though they have a 12-5 record. But it wasn't like their last couple of games were very inspired in the slightest. I'm nervous about what LA is bringing to the table here. I don't think that win against the Panthers is guaranteed. Even though they have Puka Nacua.
Sean, you are just not. Listen, this is one of the last kicks of the can that the Rams have with their current group of players. They're going to go for it because that's all they have left. So they want to win. And more importantly, they have a very good shot because they're going to run over the Panthers.
Well, they have a great offense. They have a great offense. And you know what? You may very well be right about that. And I don't know. But weird shit happens in the playoffs sometimes. So I'm not going to say that it's a given that it's going to happen, but I'm just not confident.
As long as Puka Nacua doesn't do anything else stupid, they'll be fine.
Yeah, they've got Devontae Adams too in what might be one of his final years, but they've got a lot together. I'm not saying they don't have a lot together. They've got a lot together. But it'll be interesting to see when they go toe-to-toe against some of the best teams, whether they'll be able to pull out those victories. A la the Rams-Eagles game that ended with a blocked punt that was returned for a score. Or the blocked field goal, I'm sorry.
The one thing I will say about the Rams in particular when it comes down to it, Stafford, he's making his case for Hall of Fame.
I think he'd earned it before this season. But I will say,
really putting his stamp on
I agree. I agree. And I think Matt, he deserves it. He deserves it for making what he's made out of that trade out of Detroit, which now I think we could pretty unilaterally say the Rams won that trade. As not that it didn't help Detroit, it did, but the Rams won that trade. As just statistically where they've been, as consistently as they've been, is really a testament to what's
and also who has the ring,
and also and how well this team has been. They filled gaps. Aaron Donald left, and they found a way to keep that defense competitive. There's a lot of good on the Rams. I'm nervous, and I'm also nervous about the Seahawks. Although, boy, it's hard not to think that they're gonna be the favorites. Because I said 8 and 9.
No, Sean, let me take the Seahawks.
Well, I will, but let me read the records first. Let me read the records. 8 and 9 for me, 6 and 11 for you, 14 and 3, and the top seed in the NFC. Go ahead, Sky.
Do you know the nickname for their defense?
I didn't know they had one.
The new Legion of Boom.
Oh, that's lame. I thought it was going to be something different.
No, it doesn't matter. Here's the thing. They have a defense that arguably has some of the same statistics as the old Legion of Boom. They have an offense that is amazing. It's not the best offense in the NFL, but it's one of the most. The thing is that this is a team that took a little bit of time to get together because they did have a loss to us early in the year. But once they got on their horse, they went on that horse and they ran it.
And I won't lie, I wasn't sure about the coaching change when they got rid of Pete Carroll. I wasn't sure about that. Boy, was I wrong. I will openly admit I was wrong about that because looking at where Pete Carroll is now versus where the Seahawks are now, they made that move at the exact right time.
Here's the thing with the Seahawks. The point differential for their season was plus 191. They outscored their opponents 191 points.
That's pretty ridiculous.
The next team is the Rams with 172, followed by the Patriots at 170. Then you have to go all the way down to 138 and Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's quite a lot.
They put up points and they suffocate. That Seattle defense, it may be the best defense in football, which is saying something. By the way, the worst team, the only team with a negative number is the Carolina Panthers at negative 69.
Giggity. Nice.
And you know what the best part is, Sean? And I didn't realize this until after I was looking at this tweet, but their hashtag is keep pounding.
Yes, correct. And that might be, they might take a pounding at the hands of the Rams. They might ram it into that poor black kitty as That's going to be, but you know what? You never know. Because the Panthers did beat the Rams in the regular season. One of those 5 losses was to Carolina, but that brings us to the AFC because we'll do the whole bracket at the very end, I think. So let's move on to the AFC and let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. Your record for them was 13-4, mine was 12-5, and the actual was 12-5. As your initial thoughts about the Bills this year, and then I will get into mine.
I thought the Bills would be good, and they were good. It's just that we didn't expect them to have to deal with competition this soon.
And this stiff. You know, I would never have thought that 12-5 would not have been enough to win the division. That would have had me fooled. As this, I didn't think this team. I mean, I knew this team was going to be good, but here's what I will say about it. I'm starting to understand why people are getting frustrated with Sean McDermott. I'm starting to get it. The 2-point play that they had that lost them the game just a couple of weeks ago to, I think, Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken, Bills-Eagles. In that 13-12 game, they've been running it down the Eagles' throats to catch up because the Eagles scored most of the points in the first half. The Bills get back to 12. They score a touchdown, and they could tie the game with a field goal and go into overtime, where they had momentum and they might have actually scored to win. They decide to go for 2 for the win, and even though the running game had been working the entire time, including tush pushes, mind you, because the Bills, one of the best offenses that the Bills had was when they were doing those tight bunch formations with Josh Allen running forward, so they were using the tush push on the 2-yard line to go for 2 to win the game. They have Josh Allen throw it into the back of the end zone, and he misses. Why would you do that? Why? And I feel like even in the same way that the Niners fans are complaining about their 12-5, the Bills are complaining about their 12-5 and want to get rid of McDermott in the same level of discussion. But I understand it a little bit because I could see why the frustration. And here's a note I have about Josh Allen too. I mentioned it at that game. I love Josh Allen. I think he might be one of the best raw talents of the league and one of the most raw, talented quarterbacks we've ever seen. But sometimes he is so desperate to make a play that he costs his team dearly. He tried in one of the plays in that same game to escape like 4 Eagles defenders and keep escaping to make a play. It ended up being like a 17-yard sack. It's like sometimes just know when to go down. Let the play die. It's you know, say what you want about Tom Brady and the tuck rule and all that, but some of the best reasons why Tom stayed in games was knowing I'll just go down and deal with it the next play. And I'm worried that this game against the Jaguars is not going to be as clear-cut as maybe Bills fans want it to be, and that scares me because in the same way that the Lions window is closing, I really do feel like this is the last chance the Bills are going to get at this.
Well, here's the thing, though, is that you've just made my point for me. The Bills are 49ers East. There are 2 teams that do the exact same thing and have the exact same problem, which is the fact that both of these teams are super talented, should have won, didn't win, now have all the pressure on them to win, and will they win? Maybe, maybe not.
And it's difficult because you could look at the stats and go, well, what's the problem? Well,
I want the Bills to win so bad.
Me
Please
too.
let the curse of Kelly die already.
Me too. I want to see it happen. So I just want to see him in the Super Bowl, period. Then let him win it, but at least in the Super Bowl.
But unfortunately, I think the Great Pumpkin is not coming tonight.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It's the thing that makes me really sad. It's like I want to believe, but you look at the road that it would take to get there. Ooh, it's going to be tough. But let's talk about the next team on this list, the 14-3 Patriots, who the two of our record predictions combined were not the amount of wins that they got. I chose 6-11, or you chose 6-11, and I chose 7-10, and they ended up with 14-3. And God, this team reminds me of other teams they had. But the best part about it, I think, is Ramondre Stevenson. That dude is a beast. That running back can go.
He is a beast, but God damn it, the Patriots have another they have another franchise quarterback in Drake May.
Yeah, and a head coach in Mike Vrabel Mike. I just made that one up. That's not a trend.
It doesn't work as Drake May.
That's because I did it backwards. Because it can't be the exact same. That's just infringement. But
call it whatever you want. The Patriots dynasty is back and ready to win another Super Bowl.
Well,
those long-suffering Patriot fans who haven't seen a championship in 5 years.
Well, here's the thing, though, with the Patriots. You look at who they've beat and who have they beaten. They put a whooping on a lot of bad teams. You know, there was not a lot of... They didn't have a ton of games that you could really look at and go, that was a game against a really good team that they showed and exerted dominance over. I know they have 14-3, but I'm not sold until I see some distance being made.
You are right in that they did win a bunch of their games against teams that were not particularly great and didn't have particularly great records. I would counter you on this, though, Sean. You can only beat the teams that they put in front of you.
No, agreed. I'm not saying that they don't deserve the 2 seed that they've got. I don't think that they're going to lose to the Chargers in that same vein. I don't think that that's going to happen. Because Justin Herbert turns into an actual pumpkin when it comes to playoffs. And let's hope the dirty bubble doesn't kidnap Jim Harbaugh this time and then cause them to never score again after that happens. But in any case, I like this Patriots team. That's the problem. I like this team somewhat. You know, that there's personality to it. It doesn't feel nearly as oppressive and smarmy. You know, we'll see what happens when they start winning, but, you know, like, if they start winning multiple championships, but I'm not sold on it being dynastic yet. It's nice to see them back, though, and we want to talk about dumb ownership. How dumb is the ownership in Tennessee to let Mike Vrabel go?
Mike Vrabel would not have done what he's done in New England in Tennessee.
No. Of course, nor would he have if he was on the Jets, nor would have if he was on the Giants, nor would have if he was on the Cardinals, nor would have if he was on the Browns, which he was. Not as a head coach, but he was there. But Mike Vrabel, this was always the spot that was meant for him. And it goes to show what, again, they had a team in need of a coach. And boy, did they get one. And this is what good franchises do with good owners. You know, with relaxed, massaged owners. And too soon. And we will see what happens after. We'll see what happens. You know, I'm excited that they're back, but I'm not looking forward to them just coming back and running roughshod over everybody the way that they, you know, the way it used to be. And I don't think it's going to be like that. I don't. But only time will tell. But it's nice to have the Pats back regardless, because it's going to bring at least, you know, that's the problem with all of this oppressive ads and stuff. The Patriots being back in the playoffs with this record is going to bring in ratings. And they know it. And then, yeah, exactly. And as Skyler starts that motorcycle, we move on to the Miami Dolphins, who you accurately predicted would be 7-10, while I gave them 8-9, because this team is perpetually mid. And somehow, as we sit here in almost 9 o'clock at night Eastern on Black Monday, Mike McDaniel still has his job. And that might...
Yes, but they fired their GM at the beginning of the season because they realized that Greer was not the guy.
No, he wasn't. And I also think that it wasn't necessarily Mike McDaniel's fault that Tua's just bad. I don't think Mike McDaniel is the reason that team is as bad as it is.
Having said that, though, it is a little bit funny considering the fact that, Mike McDaniels gave the worst interviews of the entire year.
Oh, well, yeah, because he's high as shit doing all of them. I mean, he literally, he's barely putting sentences together. It's wild. It's wild. But that's why he's like just a perfect fit for Miami. And I hope they keep him there for a long time because he is the exact fit for what Miami's whole identity is. They just need talent and less Tyreek Hill. I think they got to get rid of that dude. They got to get some other star players to do them so good. So they need to reset their roster, which I think they understand that they need to do, which is why they fired the GM. And now they can search for somebody who can actually build something for Mike McDaniel to work with.
And please, no more children. Tyreek, please, no more children.
No more. No, leave that to Nick Cannon. Yeah, the only one, please. One. But in any case, speaking of there is only one, there can only be one, New York Jets, who we both generously gave. You gave them 4-13 generously. I gave them 6-11 generously. And the one line I have to say is never, how did I phrase it earlier? The Jets will never let you down in letting you down.
At this point, I feel bad for Jets fans. Like, guys, you don't have to watch this team.
There's less and less of them every year, Sky. I swear. Because they just got to get rid of Woody. Because Woody, no matter who they bring in, Woody's going to bring in the wrong guy who's going to make the wrong choices with the wrong decisions. And God bless Aaron Glenn. I don't think he's a bad guy, but he is not the right guy for what that team needs. That team was clearly blowing things up, and to let Aaron Glenn try to mold it, I don't think that the culture he thinks was instilled. And it's just where it's getting to the point where every time we do a prediction, Sky, I'm going to have to predict that they go 0-17 just to be pleasantly surprised. Because that's...
I mean, you may be right.
The expectations are literally scraping the concrete floor, digging into the Earth's crust, looking for the molten nickel of the inner core. Because it's just, there's never any reason to hope with the New York Jets. Ever. And it's sad, because even their off seasons are sad. And they're never going to move the team, but it's never going to get better until Woody Johnson either dies or sells. And there's no way around it. It's WrestleMania 38 every year forever.
Oh.
It's Sami Zayn perpetually caught under the mousetrap. That is the New York Jets in a nutshell, surrounded by a bunch of jackasses. That is the perfect description of the New York Jets.
Why?
15-year playoff drought. They started the season 0-7. Oh, man. It has not been much worse for the New York Jets, I don't think. Even though they've had worse seasons statistically, I don't think it has ever been worse as far as the vibes go for this franchise than it is now. And it's painful to watch. And the guy who escaped it is probably in his last year, because I think all he really wanted was to make the playoffs. And he wanted to bring the Jets there, but the Jets would never. So instead, he went to the team that always makes it, even though they shouldn't, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who we both chose to be 9-8 and would have been if Tyler Loop didn't miss a field goal. they would have been. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, God damn it, Skyler, they all every year by the skin of Mike Tomlin's chinny chin chin. Yeah.
My voice is getting worse and worse the more we have to talk about these teams.
But I will say this. Cam Hayward is so damn good. The reason this team is where it is because this defense, when it plays well, it plays really well. TJ Watt was great. I mean, that last game of the season between the Steelers and the Ravens was fun as fuck. I really enjoyed it from top to bottom. You know, it's just a tough break on the kick. Even Chris Boswell missing the PAT at the end, you know, that allowed Tyler Loop to be in the opportunity to miss the kick that he missed, that ultimately ended the Ravens season. But am I confident the Steelers are going to win a playoff game? They could beat the Texans, but I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is going to break through that Texans defense. Not the way it's been playing. But I'm happy for I'm happy for Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, at least on that team. I'm happy for Adam Thielen on that team. Mike Tomlin, I was really hoping that he would, you know, find a way onto a different team, because it just, this has got to be agonizing for Steelers fans to be, you know, this has got to be like Groundhog's Day for them.
They're stuck in mediocrity.
They're stuck in the same season.
Getting away with it. He keeps getting away with it.
I keep waking up in the same season over and over and over again. As literally, and I'm Mike Tomlin's not going anywhere, I bet.
Probably not.
Probably not.
This team, as long as this team continues to win, they will continue to exist, because that's how this works.
That's how they do it. It's just the way it is. As way to keep things. The more they change, the more they stay the same. But speaking of, we get to the one team that you and I, Skyler, both got correct. The Cleveland Browns, who looked every bit of 5-12 as we predicted. And Kevin Stefanski, understandably and predictably, losing his job on Black Monday. As, boy, this was a well-deserved calamity in Cleveland.
Oh, man. Okay, where do we start with this team?
Well, let me start by asking a question, Sky. How many years do you think is proper pittance for Deshaun Watson? For this team to be in hell?
As long as he is on a contract.
Which I think, is this his last year? Second to last year? It was a while ago. It was a while ago now. I think this is year 4 or 5 of that deal. But
I mean,
it's
jeez
indeed. Jeez Louise indeed. From Joe Flacco to fucking Dylan Gabriel to Shadur Sanders and Myles Garrett having an NFL record-breaking year.
I mean, the Browns' problem was not their defense. Their defense was amazing. It was just their offense.
It was offensive.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It was the good work.
Well, and because they had no idea what they wanted to do at quarterback, and they knew it, and they said it basically from the jump of like, we don't know what the fuck we're doing at quarterback. That's why they drafted 2 of them. Well,
again, it's because Haslam he wanted the money. He saw the opportunity. I'ma take it. Give me fucking Shadur Sanders. And then Shadur ended up being, as expected, a rookie who didn't know what to do because he was caught in a bad situation. And this is the guy that Dion said was going to change the game, right?
Well, in all fairness to him, he is a rookie. But in all fairness
to Dion, that is his son.
But in all fairness to everything else you just said, it is the Browns. So you know, it's really a give and take there. And I really don't expect the Browns to really get much better next year either. But I don't know what to expect from this team. I don't know what to expect with the regime change that's coming. I don't know whether they'll get somebody who's going to be worthy of training and teaching Shedeur. And I'm really terrified that we're going to see Deion Sanders as head coach of the Cleveland Browns in 2026.
Oh, Haslam will do it.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Because you know what would happen? They would get primetime games. Without a doubt, the Browns would get television games of consequence if they had Deion Sanders head coaching his son in the National Football League. Without a doubt, the media would be all over that. Even if they sucked ass, they'd be all over it. And
well, God damn it! Now you've talked me into it.
well, yeah. Well, we'll know whether they listen to this podcast if they actually go through with it. But speaking of things that we're not sure whether they're going to go through with, we get to the Baltimore Ravens in a season that was snake bit in a strange way. 13-4 from Sky, 12-5 from me, and 8-9 in actuality with no playoffs, and John Harbaugh's coaching in question. And in the same way that I think it's been time for Tomlin to go and get a change of pace, I do think it's time for John Harbaugh to get a change of pace as well.
Maybe he can join his brother Jim in San Diego. Oh, wait, L.A.
And, I would expect if John's going to go somewhere, he's going to go somewhere that's going to be close and in need of somebody, which could be Buffalo for all we know. As the...
it will be.
It could be, because I know John Harbaugh's going to want to go somewhere where he's going to win, I doubt we're going to see him in Atlanta. We might see him on the Giants, considering what they've got in stock. I don't know, but it depends. I don't trust Joe Shane to be that smart, but it's also possible the Ravens don't put it on John. But this brings up another question, Sky, because I've been on the fence about this guy from the time that he started. Statistics or otherwise, playoff position or otherwise, is Lamar Jackson the guy?
You're kind of like in a Dak Prescott situation, except he is a naturally better quarterback, so you're kind of like stuck with him.
That's the trade I want to see. Dak for Lamar.
Yeah, but you're just trading one problem for another problem.
Exactly. That'd be entertaining. That'd
for
be
you.
Yeah.
Not for fans of those teams.
Well, it would be entertaining for fans of those teams for at least the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season. They'll get
the
great...
first 6 to 8 weeks of that season, they may rip out their hair and there not be any hair left in those cities.
Well, but according to the Cowboys fans, it's always their year, though.
You're putting them in the ultimate rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
Because you're asking Baltimore to be like, hey, we know you haven't had any playoff success. Here's Dak Prescott.
Well, and again... Is it? But the truth is, Sky, you're right. Is it really solving the problem? The thing is, what is the problem in Baltimore?
Oh man!
Exactly. That's the difficulty.
The wrong person.
That's the difficulty. What is the problem in Baltimore? Because I've thought that that John has been there for a long time, and that might be it. But the Ravens fans, help us out here. What was the problem this year? Because of all the teams, like the Chiefs, I kind of get it. The Ravens, I didn't anticipate they would play. It would be this kind of season for them.
Well, that's the thing, though, is that like all the teams that have made the playoffs and didn't make the playoffs, a lot of them is just roster construction, and particularly the ones, as I said, with the changing of the guard stuff, old contenders that have just gone for it and gone for it and gone for it. There's only so many kicks of the can that you can have.
Well, that's true. And the Ravens have been consistently kicking that can for almost 20 years now. They're always in it, but they're never really in it. And
they're in it as far as they have a chance to win. The problem is that they are stuck with all these other teams who are in their position and trying to be better and ultimately making it tougher.
Well, and a lot of their talent roster isn't getting any younger either. You know, and that's another part of the problem is that they've got some older guys that are getting out of there. And I think clearly losing Justin Tucker the way you lost him clearly made a difference this year. But can you really put 5 win difference on just Justin Tucker and Mark Andrews? I don't think you can. I don't know. It's going to be real interesting to see how Baltimore takes this season and what they do going forward. But speaking of overhaul, then we get to the Cincinnati Bengals. Sky said 10-7. I said 9-8. Look at that. Joe Burrow got hurt again, and they end up 6-11. And now oh boy. Joe Burrow begged this general manager to keep these wide receivers and pay him exorbitant amounts. And as a result, they still don't have an offensive line and they still don't have a defense. And now Joe Burrow is starting to sound like Andrew Luck. It could not be worse in Cincinnati than I think it is right now. The vibes are bad, Sky. Even though they're crushed people in the games they won, the vibes are bad.
The thing with this team in particular, when it comes to the struggle that they have, they're a team. When you look at them, when you look at their construction and what they are and what they do, right? This is a team that is built purely out of players' desires, not necessarily what will win them the game. And that is the biggest thing that in this league is dangerous, is you going up to your players and saying, hey, can you build this team the way I want it to be built? It is the exact same issue that happened many moons ago with a certain team in New York and a quarterback named Aaron Rodgers.
Well, and there was a lot of diva stuff that went on in the underlying realm of that as well, but I understand your point, Sky. But there's another element to this, and that's when everybody is so greedy to get that bag from the even greedier billionaires that the salary cap ends up crippling general managers who otherwise would have enough money to build a team. It's why Tom Brady was successful for so long. He did not handicap Bill Belichick from making the financial decisions necessary to build the quality team around him. The problem with
Never
Joe...
mind the fact that he got a lot of money from sponsorships, but we're not going to get into that right now.
Well, yeah, that's a story for a 30 for 30 of another day. But in any case, it's just, I think there's going to be even more turnover, and I wouldn't be surprised if Zach Taylor's name comes out this week as being let go. But there's going to be some serious drama this offseason going on in Cincinnati, I bet you.
Hold on. Sean, you've buried the lead here.
Oh, did it already happen?
No, we have an organization that is built out of players' desires to control their fate and control their destiny, with a patsy as a guy who should be in charge but just does whatever the other people tell him to do. Is this not AEW?
Well, it might be the new AEW, considering that the team that is run by the same people in AEW is actually turning out halfway damn decent now. And yeah,
I think that's in spite of, not because of.
Well, yeah, of course. But I guess let's get into that, as I'm just checking our coaching tracker here to see that we didn't miss anybody. And nope, we're still, nobody else has been fired yet. But let's move on to Jacksonville, who I said in the video that we did that the chances were that they were going to be good, but I gave them 4-13 out of spite, as did you, because we have such vehement resentment of Tony Khan that it kind of spilled over into Jacksonville. I got to admit, Liam Cohen and Dave Canales knew something about Tampa Bay that I didn't, because they got out of Tampa Bay and went to dumpster franchises and turned them into somewhat passable, and in this case, division-winning franchises. And it goes to show how just a good team with just a little good coaching can go a long way, as evidenced by what's happened here in Jacksonville. It's been impressive. You can't say it hasn't been impressive.
But I want to, though.
I want to as well. I terribly want to, but I also am terribly biased. But Liam Cohen bullied Jacksonville to get rid of their general manager and ended up being the best move they could have made.
But I don't want this team to be good.
Well, we don't know if they actually are yet because they're going to play. They're another team that was also victim of playing some okay to bad teams to pad their stats.
And having one of the most remarkable ways to win a Monday Night Football game against the Chiefs.
Agreed. But I will say that I'm not trying to discredit the Jags either. They're going to have their test this weekend. You know, this Bills-Jags game has got a lot on it for both franchises. But at least the Jags feel like they're on more of an upswing in general, to where the Bills, this is desperation backs against the wall time. But we'll see just how good they are when they play the Bills. But I will say it hasn't just been the offense. It hasn't just been Trevor Lawrence. The defense has been holding its own as well most of the time. Then there's that game against the Bengals where it was just a shootout. You know, so it just depended on what version of the Jaguars you got. But 13 is 13. And I know.
Damn it.
I know. Well, they could have been the Colts. And boy, you want to talk about a tale of two teams. We both thought this team was going to be absolute booty cheeks. And if we had made that prediction halfway through the season, we would have been right. But in the first 8 games, Danny Dimes was doing great. And then everything fell apart in a really, really painful fashion for this Colts team that ended 8-9. From 8-2 to 8-9.
Daniel Jones and Baker Mayfield were legitimate contenders for the MVP halfway through the season.
Insane.
I believe, as the kids say, absolute cinema.
Well, that's one way of putting it, but this is this season was more like what is that movie? I think it's Apocalypse Now, the Kubrick film. Full Metal Jacket. I'm sorry, Full Metal Jacket, where everybody.
That's an anime.
Full Metal. No, that's Full Metal Alchemist. You're thinking of.
Oh, okay, my bad.
There's a movie, Full Metal Jacket, which is this is my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine. You know, the Stanley Kubrick film where the guy, actually editor, put like whatever clip of the film you want in right here.
What is your major malfunction, numbnuts?
But
assuming that he's even seen the film.
Yeah, but all anyone ever remembers of it is the first part of it, which is like the army training scenes with Arlie Ermy and Private Pyle, and to the point where it gets to that penultimate scene in, you know, where I won't spoil it, but then there's a whole second half of the movie that nobody remembers. If this is the way that I think the Colts need to look at this season, remember the really good first half of the season for what it was, and just forget that whole second half ever happened.
I mean, you can't still think that it did happen or didn't happen.
I know. But considering the promise that this season had for the Colts and the way it ended, I would be frustrated as all hell. And then trading for Sauce Gardner and him just ended up being a whole wad of nothing. You want to talk about one of the most overhyped players in the league. Sauce Gardner has never been, he's had one good season, and ever since he has been one of the worst corners in the league. Yeah.
I know.
He has a cute name, so everybody wanted him to be a star. But you're not that guy, pal. I've watched enough of you to know it ain't you, brother. As the Colts got fleeced on that trade.
Over. We gotta give the belt to somebody else.
Yeah, I will say one of the big positives of this year was actually, I will give credit to the Jets. Selling those pieces off, they got a good deal. Considering where the Colts were and where the Colts ended up, that draft pick ended up being pretty valuable for the Jets. They got a deal for that. I don't know about the Quinnen Williams pick. it's a long-term investment because that's a 2027 draft pick, so we'll see what the Cowboys look like next year to see whether that was valuable or not. But the Jets did a good job getting rid of Sauce because he wasn't doing them any favors.
Here's the thing, though, is that like this season for the Colts has to be a gut punch, especially when you had the hope and the promise that was Phillip Rivers at 44 years old.
I know. What the fuck was this season? He comes back and he didn't win a single game with them. But
he tried his fluffing hardest.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter. That was a feel-good story anyway. Of like, Matthew Stafford was getting close to my record and I just couldn't allow that. So, and therefore,
he did pad the record a little bit.
He did. But good for Phillip Rivers. Honestly, it was nice to see him do that, and I won't. But what a weird season. And here's the thing: do you keep Daniel Jones now because you had this success? Although you got to give a lot of credit to Jonathan Taylor. A lot of that was on his shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Taylor was also making the case for the running back MVP of the year award because it's never going to go to someone that's not a quarterback.
Yeah, but he's always been a good running back. He's always been a good running back. He's just been on a badly managed Colts team for a long time.
I mean, that's the thing, though, is that, like, that's what the Colts are, that team that everybody wants to love, and they just aren't.
Yeah, well,
they just can't.
They trying.
Can't keep it together.
The Andrew Luck retiring early really messed with this team badly.
I mean, between that, all the stuff with who was the owner before?
Jim Irsay.
All the stuff
dying,
with Jim Irsay,
yeah.
Pat McAfee and that stuff. I mean, it's just...
Well, Pat's their biggest cheerleader, but in any case... Well, then we move on to the Titans, who certainly...
speaking of cheerleaders.
Yeah, certainly underwhelmed, as you chose 7-10, I chose 6-11, and they ended up 3-14. They fired Brian Callahan 6 games into the season, and it's hard to blame them. Because the way that team was managed was just awful. The coaching was so bad. And I'll say this, I watched enough of Cam Ward to make me think that he's got potential. They might have something in Cam Ward, but they need somebody better to guide him.
They need to have somebody who can properly guide a young mind and help coach him. The problem with that, they're going to end up with someone like Brian Flores,
who is more defensive minded and is not going to help him at all. And I think you're not incorrect about that, Sky. I don't trust that they're going to choose they've got a smart enough franchise to choose a head coach worth a damn. But it's a shame.
They'll try.
They'll think they're going to hire the best coach. But the thing is, if they can get one around Cam Ward, he might do something for that team. I think he's got a lot of raw talent. I just hope that it doesn't get squandered with ineptitude in the front office. And they could build some tools around him. They could build some tools around him. There were parts of this team that were not bad, but there were a lot of parts of this team that were incredibly bad. But I think they've got their guy. I do think they've got their guy. It's just...
But here's the thing, though. Does getting their guy really solve all their problems? Because this is a lot deeper than just having a quarterback issue.
No, they need an entire defense. They need some decent wide receivers. And that's the thing.
They need an offensive line that their quarterback doesn't die.
Yeah, and I mean, he did a good job of dodging around, but he's only going to have so many years of being able to do that. It's better to just let him be able to set his feet and make a pass. Because you don't want to end up with him being a Justin Fields where he ends up scared to throw, so he feels like he has to run all the time, and then he could be the Jets where you don't do any designed runs for the quarterback who you paid $30 million to use his legs. But in any case, the Titans they still end up with a top 5 pick, which I think they can use if they have some level of competency to build some more pieces of this. But there's just so much in the air with the Titans, and I think this division is not going to get easier in the coming years.
It almost certainly won't.
You know,
This is a difficult division, and it's only going to get stronger as teams get more powerful. It's just, they're in no man's land.
If the Jags are getting as good as they are, if the Colts can figure some way out and they end up with a healthy Daniel Jones who actually plays as well as he was playing, and if the Texans end up continuing what they've been doing, which I really like this Texans team, and I also believe that it will be where Mike Evans is playing next year, is in Houston. As this Texans team, it was touch and go there for a little while when CJ Stroud got hurt, but in the same way that Mac Jones was able to keep the ship running in San Francisco, Davis Mills was able to keep the ship running in Houston while CJ Stroud recovered, enough for this team to find a way to end up with a shutdown defense that covered for when the offense wasn't going as strongly as it could. I think DeMeco Ryans has a case to make for Coach of the Year, considering what's going on there. But Sky, you chose 12-5. I chose 11-6. They ended up 12-5. A good year for Houston.
And we'll see what they do in the playoffs.
Yeah, as they've got a tough game against the Steelers, but I'm not expecting that the Steelers will lose, or that the Steelers are going to cause them too much trouble.
I mean, again, it's a we'll see.
But now let's get through the Final Four so we can all stuff our faces with delight at the end of the regular season. And we will do our playoff predictions as well, but we got to get to the Chiefs. Boy, Sky, neither of us could have predicted at 14-3 that this team would end up not last, because the Raiders are always going to be last, but with a 6-11 record with more question marks around this team than ever before.
Agreed. However, Sean, may I please play a song on the world's smallest violin?
Well, I'm not saying I'm upset about it. Nobody said that I was upset about it. But Travis Scott...
Yes, but you sounded like you had a little bit of sympathy there.
Well, how will the Swifties survive, Sky? I mean, there's millions of people dependent on... Actually, they could give a fuck. They're probably happy that Travis Kelce is about to retire so he can spend more time with her doing his podcast. And... but, you know, one of the... yeah, but I will have to say this, kind of to your point, Sky. I've said it the past 2 years. Matt Nagy is not good at his job. He is a bad offensive coordinator. Because that team has a defense. The Chiefs have had a defense. Most of the time, the game was decided because the offense could not do shit. Whether it was Mahomes, whether it was Kelce dropping passes, whether it was the schemes just being one-dimensional and bad. This team has not had good offensive coordinating for 2 years, even when they won 14 last year. How many games were decided because the defense kept them in it?
Something I will counter when it comes to this, it's also just a roster construction issue with this team. This is a team, when you look at them and you watch them, it's just really, really bad at doing things around their star players. They are depending on Patrick Mahomes to carry them and do everything for them. No, their offensive line is bad. Their receivers are bad. Their defense outside of Jones is not great. They are just dependent on their star players riding it out. And as great as Patrick Mahomes is, he can't carry this team forever, but they expect him to.
Well, and it's going to really be interesting to see how the Chiefs now respond to this year, because they're not going to knee jerk, right? They're not going to get rid of Andy Reid. They're not going to get rid of Pat Mahomes, obviously. But
the thing is that is this going to be a thing where Reid decides this is it? I'm old enough. I can retire now.
Maybe, but I doubt that this would be... I don't think Andy Reid's going to do that on a season like this. I think if they end up with another season like this, then maybe. But, no one's going to dispute how great Andy Reid has been as a coach. But
he's going into the Hall of Fame whenever he decides to retire. But that's the point, is he going to retire? Because he may decide, I may not have it anymore. And he may not, because his offensive schemes were not that good either.
Well, and a lot of that falls on Matt Nagy's shoulders. And I really do believe that once Eric Bieniemy left, Matt Nagy did more harm to this Chiefs team long term than anything else. And he's the one who I think, if they can find themselves a better offensive coordinator, I would bet you the Chiefs could be back in playoff contention next season easily. This could end up being...
Not with this offensive line. Not with this offensive line. They need to draft a blindside tackle for Mahomes to protect him, because that is the asset, especially now with an ACL tear.
Yeah, well, yeah, and he's not even going to come back at the start of the season. I don't think he'll be able to.
Exactly.
So
they're in
trouble.
Doo-doo trouble.
They're in trouble, man. But you know who's not in trouble is the 14-3 Broncos, who exceeded expectations. You gave them 11, I gave them 10, and they ended up with the top seed in the AFC because Sean Payton is a wizard. I don't like the guy, but he's a wizard.
This is one of those things where they failed their task successfully. Because they rode a record based on the fact that they did not play anybody difficult, but they won. They beat the teams in front of them.
Well, but considering we didn't know that the Chiefs were going to be this bad, considering that we didn't know that a lot of the AFC North was going to be that bad, there were... But there were a lot of teams that I think the Broncos didn't have to beat, and in years past would not have beaten. But it's amazing how just getting rid of John Elway has done wonders for this franchise.
If you told a Broncos fan that after Peyton won his Super Bowl, you'd be branded a heretic.
I know, but considering what the Broncos endured during his time in upper management, damn. Is all I have to say to that. And look where they are now. I don't like Sean Payton, but I love Bo Nix. And they've got a great wide receiving core, and their defense is equally good. They're going to be a threat. They're going to be a sincere threat. But it's interesting to see, and that's the thing with a 17-game season, is that you get a lot bigger numbers than you used to, and it's not as impressive as it used to be. As far as
still impressive, though.
But it's still impressive.
You have to play the games in front of you, right?
Yep, and Sean Payton has always been good at doing that. He's always been good at doing that, and it goes to show that he said to the Waltons, trust me, take the $100 million cap hit, get Russell the fuck out of here. I know what I'm doing. And they let him, and he was right. I give him a lot of credit for that. Now let's move on to the Chargers, who we both predicted would be 12-5 and ended up 11-6. But are they not in basically the exact position that you and I both expected them to be in?
They're the second fiddle in the AFC West, just not to the team that we were expecting them to be second fiddle to.
Yeah, but they're basically sitting in the same spot with the same division wins that they had, or that we thought they were going to have, and I think that they're going to end up with the same first round exit that they typically end up with.
I mean, they have a chance because they have a really good quarterback and they have a really good coach. It's just a matter of, can they finish?
They do. Well, the difficulty is that Justin Herbert suffers from Phillip Rivers syndrome and Lamar Jackson syndrome and all these. And that's the difficulty with having so much raw quarterback talent that ends up being kind of pushed underneath successful franchise builds, and so a lot of quarterbacks that otherwise would be considered all-time greats just aren't, because they're just not on the teams that end up with that long level of success. I think Justin Herbert is starting to fall into that category. Yeah, he's great in the regular season, but he disappears in the playoffs. And I'm not confident that going up against this Patriots defense, that's going to change.
And that's the hard part, is that predicting how they're going to do is just, you don't know.
But I will say that
know.
you don't know, but I will say that this was maybe one of the most sure thing teams of the league were the Chargers. And if I were going to guess, Chargers are going to Charger, and we're not going to see much come out of it. Prove me wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong. I like Jim Harbaugh. He got out of Michigan before shit hit the entire fan.
I wonder how much he knew.
As well, that's a good question. That's a very good question that I am not willing to answer on this program because I have no evidence. But let's finish up with the number 1 pick in the draft. The Las Vegas Raiders. And you want to talk about franchises that need new ownership. We have left out a very big name in the they need new owners conversation. Mark Davis and his bowl cut. You want to talk about being the cuck of his father. He has never known how to do it. He never will know how to do it. The biggest success he's had, and get ready for, hold on to this guy, was Derek Carr. This guy does not and cannot own this franchise. Give the whole thing to Brady. Give the whole franchise to Brady. Let him do the calls. I mean, get him out of the broadcast booth. I mean, and not that
we
he's
need to listen to Tom Brady on the broadcast talk more about his glory days.
Not that it's bad. I don't think Tom is that bad of a gawk, but he's setting a bad precedent having his toes in both. Because I heard that Aikman's now involved in some sort of management group with one of the other not the Cowboys, but I forget what. But maybe the Eagles. I don't remember. But in any case, it's setting a bad precedent. But give Tom the whole franchise. Because this team, they moved the team, it didn't help. They got new general manager, didn't help. They got new coaches almost every year, didn't help. They got new quarterbacks, they got old quarterbacks, didn't help. Nothing helps this franchise. This number 1 pick, guess what, Sky? It's not going to help. There was a time when I wanted to be a Raiders fan. And then I turned 14 and realized that,
oh my God.
Yeah, I had 3 years where I tried. 3 years where I tried, and it was ass, and ass. Then I moved on to the Rams for 1 year, and that year they were ass. And then I moved on to the Bucks, and then for 13 years they were ass. But then it ended up paying off. If I had stuck,
considered like success.
No, but think about where I would have been had I stuck with the Raiders. Yeah. Here we are. So, and enjoy perpetual jobbing, Raiders. You are the Barry Horowitz of the NFL. And it's a shame. It's a shame. Because you have such a cool logo and cool uniforms, but you have a bad owner, and it's not gonna ever get any better.
It's only gonna get worse from here.
Yeah, you gave him 6 and 11. I gave him 8 and 9, and then of course that was way too generous. Geno Smith literally melted in front of our very eyes, and so that brings us to. You got, by the way, just for the fun set of statistics, you correctly predicted the Browns, the Texans, the Dolphins, and the Giants. And I correctly predicted the Falcons, the Browns, and the Texans. So you correctly predicted one more than I did. But just to be fair, I also did a total where I chose all of the differentials in predictions. So for instance, like you chose 6 and 11 and it was actually 14 and 3. So that number was 8. So I took all of the differential numbers to see how off we were. And whoever had the lower score would be the winner. Now, neither of these numbers are good either. You got 109 off of being perfect. And I was 106 games off of being perfect. So congrats on both of us being somewhat a more mediocre or somewhat less mediocre than the other.
Here's the thing, though, at the end of the day, is that the NFL, as this season has proven, is a hard sport to predict, and predicting is almost a fallacy.
Well,
but it's fun to do.
It is fun to do, and therefore let's try one more time to get into the playoffs. Now that we have the brackets in place, here's what we got. Broncos at 1, Pats versus LA, the 2 versus the 7, the Bills versus the Jags, who are the 6 seed versus the 3 seed, and the Steelers and the Texans 4 and 5. On the NFC, we have the Packers Bears 2 and 7 or 7 and 2, Eagles Niners 3 and 6, and Panthers Rams 4 and 7 with the Seahawks at the 1 seed. Skyler, what is your playoff predictions for these games, and who is winning the Super Bowl this year?
Now, are we picking the individual games?
Yeah, I'd say so. Let's go individual games, and then we'll re-rack for the division, and then we'll go from there. Because I'm going to write it all down. So tell me who wins what, and we'll go from there.
Man, I don't know. Throw darts. That'll be easier.
Well, which is a good thing about this season. It does feel like everybody legitimately has a chance, rather than feeling it was so cut and paste with Chiefs-Eagles.
But anyways, back to the point. I guess we'll go with the Patriots because I don't believe in the Chargers.
Okay. So the Patriots, they have a chance, but we'll say New England, who is the 2 seed. Go on.
I just can't believe in the Chargers. Let's see here. This is tough because,
it is tough.
I want to be realistic and give teams chances, but I also feel like, man, these teams are just going to get their asses kicked. Bills over Jaguars, Texans over Steelers.
Okay, so
that's the AFC for me.
All right, so there's the AFC. So if the Bills win, then the Bills would be here against the Broncos because they are the 6th seed. And then that would be the 5 seed Texans. So it would be Broncos, Bills, and Pats Texans into divisional.
Here's where we're going to have fun. I'm going to predict Bills and Patriots so they meet in the AFC Championship game.
Okay. All right.
And I'll take the Patriots.
Oh, all right. So the Pats are your AFC champions. Okay.
Okay.
Now for
So
the NFC. No, well, let's do let's do your entire scope and do the Super Bowl winners. So Packers, Bears.
Give me the Bears.
Oh, okay. I don't disagree with you though, Sky, because it's hard to see the optimism in Green Bay at this moment.
I will take slight upset 49ers over Eagles. And I'll take Rams over Panthers.
Okay, so in that case, the top seed there would be the Bears. Wow, you actually picked almost the exact same as far as the seeds go. So then that would be the 49ers playing the Seahawks. The Bears and the Rams would play. Actually, you did pick the exact same. You picked the 2 seed, the 6 seed, and the 5 seed. Okay, so that would be Seahawks, Niners, and Bears, Rams.
Well, here I would take the Seahawks over the Niners.
Okay.
And much as that hurts to say, I will pick the Rams over the Bears. So you get Rams and Seahawks in the championship game. And in that one, I would pick the Seahawks.
Boy, that is painful for you. So Patriots Seahawks is your Super Bowl. Who's taking it?
Patriots. Drake, May.
The Patriots are going to win it. Wow. As the reign of dominance resumes, and it only took 5 years. All right, well, here's where we're going to differ. I am going to still choose New England over LA. I still do think that happens. I do think the Bills are going to beat the Jaguars. I am going to give that as well. I think the AFC, your initial reactions are all the same. I'm going to say the Texans beat the Steelers as well. However, I think the Texans are going to stop the Patriots. I think we're going to be surprised here, and the Texans are going to make a push. DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud are gonna surprise New England and throw them for a loop here in the final bits. And as far as Broncos-Bills is concerned, I'm also going to have the same level of fun and say that the Bills beat the Broncos, which then gives me Bills and Texans. I'm still pushing for the Bills. I still am pushing for this team. I am not losing faith. I had them in the Super Bowl in the predictions we did before the season started. They're going to remain my Super Bowl pick. I'm going to stick to my guns on this one because it's their last chance, and I feel like with the Chiefs out of the way and the Ravens out of the way, this is the best shot they've got.
Glad you're keeping the faith.
I'm keeping the faith. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I'm keeping the faith. On to the other side. I think the Packers are going to beat the Bears. Because I don't like the way that the Bears looked against the Lions, because they didn't rest a lot of people and it didn't look great. And I think that that's going to be one of the things. I think the Packers are going to win that game. That's going to be another one of those, the 7 seed. And it was the last time the 7 seed one was also the Packers, because they're known to do that. They win games they shouldn't. So it's going to be Seahawks Packers in the divisional round. I want the 49ers to win, but this Eagles team is irritating as fuck. And I think that the Eagles are going to pull it out.
I don't blame you.
But I want the Niners to win that game. Don't get me wrong. I like laughing at the Eagles. I would love to see the Niners win that game. But I think the Eagles are going to end up pulling out of that. And then that leaves the Rams and Panthers. And while I would love to say that the Panthers find a way to shock the world and get a win, I can't. That the division is ass. It'd be nice to see. It'd be a feel-good story, but I think I'm going to still keep it to the Rams, which would mean that it's Seahawks, Packers, and then Eagles, Rams in the divisional. I think the Seahawks are going to beat the Packers. I don't think lightning strikes twice. But I am going to say the Eagles are going to beat the Rams again. And the Eagles are still going to end up making it into the NFC Championship game against the Seahawks. And because they are still in play, and I think that we are one good big pressure coaching decision away from Sam Darnold turning into a pumpkin, I am sticking to my original pick of the Super Bowl. It's going to be Bills-Eagles. I don't want it to be the Eagles, but this team gets good when they get dramatic, as is evidenced by this year. And I think that for some reason, they're still going to make it. I'm hoping they don't win, because I'm going to optimistically say that the Bills win the Super Bowl, because I'm going to keep the dream alive. It's still real to me, damn it.
Well, you keep that dream alive.
I will keep the dream alive, but Bills-Eagles is still my pick for the Super Bowl, but there's a lot of good options on the table, Sky. There's a lot of good options in what I consider to be a very fun and refreshing NFL season on the whole.
A season that will go down in history as a season.
As well, it wasn't interesting to watch. It was fun to follow, and now we get to see just how much the Bookers just see who the Bookers are invested in the future. What do you think? I guess that's a great last way to end this, and then everybody can go feast. Is how do you think the booking has been done in the NFL lately? What do you think about the overall booking scheme? Has Triple H done a good job?
Is Triple H in charge? I don't know. It could be The Rock for all we know.
Well, The Rock tried. The Rock already tried at football, and we know how that went. So we'll let the XFL die as well as this podcast die. But thank you all for joining us as we have summed up the season, and we will see you after the playoffs and whenever we feel like doing something else. Thank you, Skyler, for lamenting and feeling football-y with me.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for having you. and being you. And we will see you next time, folks.